Hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Juliet Barbara. I'm with the communications team, and in a few minutes, I'm going to pass it off to Casey Harold, who will be facilitating today. But I wanted to share a quick update about this meeting before we get started. So we are trying something a little new, a little different with this structure, and it is to tie this meeting to a theme. And today's theme is building an inclusive movement. And these themes will be broad enough to hopefully reflect all of our work, but also connect us to the broader movement and kind of our shared work as a group. And the goal here is to do some storytelling around the work that we do, and hopefully understand our work in a more participatory way. So rather than kind of showcase and report out, we want to make this more inclusive and more of a story. And we hope that this new narrative process will help us do that. So, oh, and a couple of things that are new. We will be featuring more guest speakers, hopefully, and we'll be open to suggestions for who to invite. But today we have a community member, Ada Swang, speaking to us today, so it's very exciting. And some of you may be wondering, what about metrics? Because this is still called the metrics meeting, and they are not going away, and we are thinking iteratively about how we keep them throughout the meeting, but not in the way that they used to be, which is kind of formal reporting. And so we're actually talking to Dario in a couple weeks about how to do that most effectively. But we really want to focus more on impact in a way that everyone can relate to. So, real quick on the speaker nomination process, the current process is for C-levels to nominate people from their teams. We want to make sure that all of the teams are reflected, over time in these meetings. And we also want to open up the nomination process on Wiki for staff and community. So stay tuned for more details on that. And I'll pass. Oh, and feedback is welcome. So after this meeting, if you have thoughts or feelings, please email me or Sam Lean. I'll pass it off to Casey.
All right. So, as Julie said, the theme this week is this month is inclusivity and the work that we're doing to build a more inclusive movement. Um, and that can be kind of a funny topic. Like, what does that mean? It's pretty broad in a lot of ways. And the way we're looking at it today is about um, how we can hear from more people and invite more folks um, and get more people involved in the work that we do on Wikimedia projects. And that can mean doing a variety of different kinds of work, projects, approaches, ways that we're thinking about our work. There's been a lot that's been going on over the last year or so, or even the last 6 months within different teams, but also within communities and what they're trying to do. So I think the more we talk about inclusivity as a value that's important to us and something that we're trying to do, the more we're going to see that growing on different teams um, and also out in the community. Um, so one of the challenges around inclusivity and working on that is thinking about who's not here right now, who's not participating in our movement, either by reading, editing, and participating in other ways. The challenge that I was thinking about, well, they have a different perspective than some of us, and our perspectives to plan for something that's different. What kind of changes do we need to make other folks feel welcome and to find themselves represented and reflected in our movement and the work that we do? Um, so it's thinking about why people aren't involved yet and what we need to do to invite them, what changes we need to make. Also, it's making sure that our spaces, whether that's talk pages, editathons, projects, campaigns, and offline events, feel safe and welcoming to people who may not have been to one before. People are doing work in all kinds of different ways, like the safe space policies that are now required for all grantees who are doing offline events. That's a learning process of how to actually use those policies. James Alexander did a training for a recent conference grantee, and apparently, they had a couple of incidents come up, but they said they felt well prepared to deal with them and respond to that. So I think that it's an ongoing project to do that kind of work. Um, and some of the other ways that we can be inclusive is making sure that newcomers feel welcome. Make sure they understand what we're talking about on talk pages or in Fabricator. Explaining things in a way that don't make people feel stupid for asking. And letting people know that when they make mistakes, it's okay. We can continue to work with them in those ways. So there are a lot of awesome projects that are going on today, or going on, like I said, regarding inclusivity. We're going to have a couple of people talk um, about their work, but I do want to highlight some of the other things, some of the work that is happening that won't get talked about today. Like I said earlier, we're now requiring friendly space policies for all grantees who are doing offline events, editathons, meetings, conferences, hoping to make more people feel welcome there. There's the team that's been working on the lazy loading feature that was recently pushed out, and that's to help people who are mobile users download pages faster. It's recognizing that not all folks have super strong internet connections or that data costs can be really high, and making the barrier to getting to Wikipedia lower for those people. I understand that Ellery in research and Patrick and Susa have been working to develop tools that will identify toxic language, so that potentially administrators and others can come and intervene in conversations. It's so hard to watch a lot of different talk pages at once and see when something bad is coming about. So I look forward to that feature. I understand there's continued work going on in the Code of Conduct for technical collaboration. And I think from the grants team, we've had a friendly space policy on our pages for the last year or so. And it's made a big difference, I found, in the way people are contributing their comments and engaging in that collaborative process. So I'm excited to see that continue to develop in the tech spaces. And I understand there was a recent accessibility sprint in Philadelphia for the iOS app, and that those are going to be rolled out in the App Store next week. So it's really great to see that so many teams are doing this kind of work. And it would be great to understand from everyone thinking about what you could do on your team to be more inclusive. What could be small changes or large ones. So go on into the next parts of the meeting. So our agenda today, we've already done the welcomes and the themes. Oh wait, no, I'm going to do welcomes for new folks. After that, Maria is going to talk to us about the community update, sharing projects that are going on out in the community right now. Then we're going to talk to Chris Schilling. He's on the community resources team about a recent Inspire campaign around harassment. Then one of our grantees, Addis Wong, is going to join us and talk about Wikipedia Asia Month and how they worked to include a lot of new countries and participants in that project. Then Catherine Mayer, I don't have to say her last name. Catherine's going to talk to us, give us some updates, hopefully outcomes from the recent board meetings. Then we will be open for questions and discussions. I've already seen someone in IRC says they've got stuff. And then at the end, Wiki Love. So buckle up, get excited. Let's be inclusive. So it's welcome to new hires. We've gotten James Baldwin in F&A. I think that's finance and administration. Our team's really happy to have him. He will be helping us in grants, understanding some financial issues, which is wonderful. There's Victoria Coleman in technology, and Vahid Mansour on CE. He's on the education team. Then contractors, interns, volunteers. We have Paul Norman working on product from Canada. And then the anniversaries. These are some pretty impressive numbers. Megan Hernandez, 7 years. That's fantastic. Winifred Olaf, I didn't realize this, 6 years. Is she in this room? I don't think that she is. But tell her that you know she's been here for 6 years. I think she'll really like that. We've got Kim Gill, 4 years, Sandra George for 2, Amanda Bittiker, Juliet Barbera, Jacob Rogers, Grace Gellerman, Stas, I'm not going to say her last name right, Jerry Kim, Dikara Coley, all of them have been here for 2 years as well. And then 1 year anniversaries for Joe Mattazzoni, Lindsay Ann Frankenfield, Liz Velarde, and Nathaniel Schaff. It's actually kind of remarkable how fast this year has passed. I remember when a lot of you were like brand new. So glad you're here. All right, so I'm going to pass it off to Maria for community stories.
Hi, my name is Maria Cruz. I work in Communications and Outreach Coordination in the Community Engagement Department, and I'm here to share some stories from communities. And I'm singing because people look up more when I do that. I'm kidding. Okay, so Donostiapedia is a project that seeks to promote and value the history of Donostia in a key cultural time for Donostia San Sebastián, that is celebrating the European Capital of Culture, and also celebrating 15 years of Wikipedia and the recognition, I think, of the Basque Wikimedians user group. All of this provided a great context to host this project that actually has several different programs. Some of them are WikiCity, including QR codes in historical sites, Wikipedians in residence, working with libraries, and printing a book, and other activities as well. And you can follow that on the link below. Wiki Experiments. This is a year-long project by Shared Knowledge, a user group in Macedonia. They produced 45 high-quality videos of chemistry and physics experiments to illustrate scientific concepts and phenomena. And they are now adding that to different Wikipedias as well. And you can see the videos on the link below. They are actually pretty neat and very, very well done. And the last story is a repeat from last metrics because I made a couple mistakes talking about Wikilove's monuments, and I wanted to correct that here. Um, there were not 100 uploaders. I don't know why I thought that was okay. I misread a tool for Wikilove's monuments. There were 11,033 uploaders, 77% registered after the competition started, and this is one of the key metrics for Wikilove's monuments. So I wanted to clarify that. And the international winners will be announced in the first 2 weeks of December, not November, which is what I said in last metric. So this is the correct information. I'm sorry that I made a mistake, and thank you for helping me clarify this, Lodewijk and Lily. Wikimedia project milestones and affiliates. French Wikisource reached 1 million proofread pages, and this is, I think, the highest in the history of Wikisource, if I read Wikimedia News correctly. Russian Wikinews reached 100,000 total pages, and Welsh Wikipedia reached 80,000 articles. Yay! It's exciting. Two new affiliates, Wikidon, a user group that will work with women-related topics in Italian Wikipedia, and WikiConference North America is another recognized user group that is dedicating to organizing the conference every year. Upcoming collaborations with communities. The community wishlist survey is starting its voting phase November 28th, December 12th. If you want to submit a wish, you still have time until this Sunday, right? I think so. Yes. So don't hesitate to add your wish. You don't need to have technical skills to add your wish. You can only outline a problem and describe, I think, what you think would be the solution. So go and do it. It's very important. Annual Tool Labs is ongoing until November 4. That passed. And New Readers Target Countries is ongoing until December 5. If you have collaborations with communities, please add them to the public calendar on Meta. And that is it. Going to Chris, online.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Schilling. I'm a community organizer working in community resources. Lots of community going on with my job. I'm going to talk about the Inspire campaign we ran in June of this year on addressing harassment. And the purpose of these month-long campaigns is to invite community members to submit and work on ideas together to address some of the movement's biggest challenges. And for some of those ideas that need funding, these ideas can be moved from Idea Lab, where we host them, into our grant programs. So the reasoning behind this topic is fairly straightforward. The harassment survey run by our support and safety team made fairly clear that harassment is witnessed and experienced often enough in our projects. It also revealed that the existing methods and systems that are available to deal with harassment are not considered very effective. And more fundamentally, I think it's important to note that harassment poses a threat to the welfare of our contributors and to our communities. Next slide, please. Running this kind of campaign on a fairly sensitive topic was not without some challenges, and I'd like to just talk about some of those briefly. Next slide, please. So I encountered a lot of disruptive behavior in running this campaign. Some examples included ideas that were submitted that were intentionally provocative, such as ideas with titles like "Harassment is Natural," or ideas that rejected the rationale of the campaign, like an idea with a title that said, "This is a distraction from like real Wikipedia problems." There would also be cases where editors would intentionally provoke or disparage idea creators who would attempt to submit ideas in good faith to try and address harassment. Next slide. I also want to note that there were some issues with some of the ideas themselves, even when they were submitted in good faith. Some ideas intending to address harassment would have required fairly fundamental changes in how participation in Wikimedia projects works. Some of these include restricting editing to just logged in editors, so kind of completely removing anonymous editing, or requiring identification for registered editors. Some ideas were also fairly underdeveloped, which caused some misunderstandings or just made it difficult for folks to provide feedback. Um, so with those challenges in mind, I do want to make clear that this campaign was successful on many fronts, regardless. Next slide, please. So let's talk about what happened during this campaign. Next slide, please. So participation in this campaign was quite high compared to prior Inspire campaigns we've run in the past on the gender gap and on content review and curation. We saw 700 people participate in this campaign through idea submissions, comments, endorsements of ideas, and in total, 280 ideas were submitted to address harassment. So I feel really good about that level of participation in this campaign. Next slide, please. So the majority of ideas that we received during this campaign were calls for changes to community guidelines, policies, and systems. And some of those involve things like how involve questions of how blocks are issued by the community or by administrators. They also include things like the steps involved in formal conflict resolution steps and the methods that are used to report harassment. We also received ideas that call for changes in foundation policies and actions, such as our image use policy, and for calls for additional clarity around what behaviors constitute harassment or not. Next slide, please. I also want to bring attention to 4 ideas here that have some momentum and interest based on activity and some of my own discussions with the idea creators. So briefly, there's an idea for a community health user group that would organize project volunteers to work together and consider questions of how to motivate volunteers, work through interpersonal conflicts, and prevent disruptive behavior. A second idea is for a toolbox that would provide nonviolent communication examples using real examples from discussion pages, talk pages on Wikimedia projects, to show how, for instance, an unconstructive conversation or a conflict could have gone a little bit differently had appropriate techniques been used in discussion. Another idea calls for building a resource page on all Wikimedia projects to let folks know about what to do if they are harassed. And finally, there's an idea for training modules to teach program and event leaders and participants how to handle instances of harassment, both online and offline. Next slide, please. Campaigns in the past have had some success at moving ideas into our grant programs for funding. In this case, though, for this campaign, a few ideas have been submitted so far. There's only been about 12 proposals drafted and only 4 formally proposed for our grant programs. The main reason for this, though, is because many ideas submitted simply did not need funding for implementation. And this was rather surprising to me. I did not expect this given how previous campaigns have simply gone. So this left me with a rather important question. Next slide, please. It's how should we support ideas that don't need funding? And I think what I'd like to bring attention to kind of illustrate one way to approach this question is through a case study. Next slide, please. So one case of how we can provide a different kind of support in addition to funding can be demonstrated through ongoing collaborative work I've done with English Wikipedia editor Pax Gethin, who proposed an idea related to user space protection. Next slide, please. The idea in brief is basically to prevent vandalism and harassment on Wikipedia user pages by protecting them automatically. Next slide, please. So how did I support this idea? Well, just to kind of give a brief overview, initially, one step I took here is to advise PAX on preparing a good proposal. On English Wikipedia, these proposal processes are referred to as request for comments or RFCs. And there are pretty strong expectations about the framework for these discussions. I also have some experience closing these in my volunteer capacity as administrator. I also helped evaluate and summarize community feedback on the proposal itself and recommended changes to it accordingly before this proposal was formally presented. Once the discussion was finished and consensus was reached, I worked with some discussion participants to think about the next steps to actually implement this proposal. And I also discussed with project volunteers and staff who had skill sets in these areas about user space protection, about different ways we could think about how to implement this proposal. This was a technical proposal as well, so it required the right kind of knowledge about how page protection works. Next slide, please. So based on my experiences with this campaign and also with my work with PAX, I have some recommendations about how we can move forward from this campaign. I think we have to more proactively support idea creators to effectively address harassment. So to build a more inclusive community, we need to really work very directly with these idea creators. This is especially true when the topic concerns something as sensitive as harassment. And anecdotally, I've also noted that many folks who have submitted ideas are people who have either experienced or witnessed harassment themselves and are motivated to prevent further incidents for themselves and others who contribute to our projects. Next slide, please. One major way, excuse me, one major way that we can support contributors is to support the proposal building process from the very beginning, helping to structure and incorporate community feedback on proposals in their early stages are key to achieving community-supported changes in project policies and guidelines, which, as I said before, were the bulk of ideas in this campaign. Next slide, please. There are other ways we can also work with idea creators in supporting their ideas, such as helping idea creators consider the logistics of how to implement their idea. There's often a good idea there and maybe a lot of different ways to actually implement that idea, and maybe having us think through which approach might be best, I think is one area. We can also rework ideas into grant proposals. So for instance, a change for a policy, such as one idea I noticed was to actually change how administrators are placed in projects by rotating them instead of having them in a permanent position, such as on the English Wikipedia. So instead of a change in policy, we could encourage, for instance, research on the effects of rotating administrators versus having them in a permanent position, which is something that might be considered for funding. It certainly is an interesting question. And finally, we can encourage collaboration so that an idea creator isn't on their own to make an idea happen. For instance, we can contact endorsers of an idea or community members with the right experience or staff to create collaborative teams to help develop ideas a little bit further and help them toward implementation. Next slide, please. So to address harassment effectively, we need to be working on this together to build inclusive communities across our projects. And through this campaign, I've encountered a lot of stories and experiences from our contributors on this topic. And I think a lot of us here at the foundation and a lot of us in our communities have something we can offer to support many of the ideas in this campaign. I encourage you to get in touch with me if you'd like to become more involved. Thanks very much. And I think now we are going to hear from Adis on Wikipedia Asian Month. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So my name is Edis Wang from the Wikimedia User Group China, and one of the organizers of the Wikipedia Asian Month. Before I'm talking about what it is, I have a video for everyone to take a look.
Wikipedia Asian Month is an online editathon. The first one was held in November 2015.
This is an event that aims to promote the quality and quantity of Asian content on Wikipedia, which is currently underrepresented.
We also wish to improve each other's understandings of the Asian community.
This event helps support smaller Wikipedia communities, as well as allowing minority language Wikipedia to host editathon that otherwise won't occur.
Last year's editathon took place in 43 Wikipedias, 23 of them having less than 10,000 articles.
The event resulted in creation of 6,086 articles, all of which were larger than 3,500 bytes.
These articles were created by 1,096 Wikipedians from all over the world.
At the end of Wikipedia Asian Month, we are going to send 500 postcards to 44 different countries and regions around the world to recognize the Wikipedians who has made at least 5 articles for our editathon.
These postcards came from mainland China, Taiwan, Japan, Thailand, Philippines, India, and Indonesia.
We're happy with what we achieved last year with Wikipedia Asian Month, and we're looking forward to achieving even more next November, so join.
So what is Wikipedia Asian Month? Basically, it's the annual editathon on Wikipedia that promote content about Asia. It happens supposed to happen in every November, and last year was the first edition. And it's a global event that allows everyone to join in any language Wikipedia. Next slide, please. So how does Wikipedia Asian Month work? Basically, we send in postcards to the Wikipedians who wrote 5 or 4 articles on their Wikipedia with certain roles. And these postcards are sent from Asian communities. And we believe these postcards has much meaningful value, bigger than the physical value. So rather than saying we're sending a prize to participants, we're actually sending some kind of souvenirs. And also, as mentioned previously, we have some rules to ensure so we when we're pursuing the quantity, we also make sure we have a good quality on the articles. So here's our postcards. This is a photo of the people, Wikipedians from Taiwan, writing this postcard and going to send to the participants from all over the world. Next slide, please. And here's some numbers of the Wikipedia Asian Month in 2005. We have 43 different languages Wikipedians participating in Asian Month. There's 1,096 Wikipedians, and they have totally created 6,086 new articles. And in that 43 language Wikipedias, there's 23 of them actually has fewer than 10,000 articles. And at the end, we're able to send postcards to 44 countries or regions in the world. And it's a growing campaign. This year, we're having around 50 Wikipedian communities participate, and we expect a lot more Wikipedians to join us. We also extend to the project to the Wikiquote and Wikisource as a pilot project and see if this work out to encourage more cross-wiki edits, since most Wikimedians editing Wikipedia, but there's less edits on the Wikiquote and other sister projects, so we want to promote that. And we are providing more sophisticated judging tools, so it's more easy for organizers to judging articles and also collecting statistics. And we'll have more postcards sending from more communities. Next slide, please. Here are some lessons we learned, also the strategy we used. First is we collaborate with smaller communities. We invite communities that are relatively small to participate. As mentioned previously, 23 of the Wikipedia communities is actually relatively smaller in last year. And we're also engaging with the people that has no experience or just little experience with the international collaborations. We're having lots of Wikipedia communities that have never do anything internationally with the movement, or they have never get in touch with the people from other language Wikipedia before. So that's pretty exciting. And we also provide easy to do instructions. So any experience level can organize, even you just register a new account. There's not much thing you need to do besides translating several stuff. And we provide all the pages and the tours designed. And we're using a lot of publicities tours like Central Notice, and we kind of like start to build a brand of the Asian Month, and we provide postcards. So these are some things for smaller communities may not capable to do. Like if you only have 5 people to participate in your Wikipedias, it doesn't make sense to make some postcards or other kind of souvenirs. Or if it's just a small event, maybe it's hard to get Central Notice activated, or there's no such brand things. But under the Wikipedia Asian Month, it allows smaller communities to join this kind of event and help them grow. Next slide, please. And we also do frequent communications. We want to stay clear and frequent communication with all organizers. Mass message is one of the way we use to broadcast all the general updates. I usually send a message around like once a week before it starts, and send it during the event as needed. We'll also encourage communications on talk page, Facebook, instant message, or emails, whatever each organizers prefer to talk with others, to increase these kind of communications, so people can build trust. They feel comfortable to talk with you, even they're not confident to say if that's something should be talked. And we have a Q&A page. We have a Facebook event, and we encourage lots of communications between organizers and local participants. We encourage them to keep updates to all the participants, so they understand what the rule is, what kind of process are we reaching, something like that. Next slide, please. And smaller recognition goes a long way. Postcard is the initiative that I've been doing like 5-6 years since back in 2016. I started with IEG on the social media program in China, and it can reach the Wikipedians, as I call it, in the middle. It's kind of less focused in the movement, because the people who are very active, or the people just like newcomers, easily get more attention from the movement. Well, the people who made only a couple edits per day, they kind of get less focused. So we want to give more attention to them. And by that way, we can help to improve our community health. And we have a title called Wikipedia Asian Ambassador. It's a piece of paper. Basically, it's like a certificate, and we have many Asian affiliates endorse that, and it's changes a lot. Many Wikipedia Asian ambassadors from last year's being very active this year, like willing to organizing event and create a lot of more articles, and they also start to do something beyond Wikipedia Asian Month on their home wiki. So we're doing lots of team building and brand loyalty. You know, the postcard itself has a function that you can actually send it to you, and you can show off to your friends and families. For many Wikipedians doing the Wikipedia, they didn't get any kind of souvenirs. They don't really get a chance. But postcards is easy way to send to them, and it's a recognition to them, their effort. And more importantly, the postcard costs very low. Next slide, please. So here's some challenges we had. Judging articles is not easy job. You have to look at this article if it's long enough, it has certain decent resources, and if it's have the notability. So in last year's Kenrick from Indonesia, Wikipedian community developed a judging tool and reduced some labor work. So it makes it easier for every organizers to do the work. But this year, there's Russian Wikipedian Lee Loy, who brings a new tool called Fountain. And this tool makes judging very, very easy, as it allows participants to submit their contributions to the tour, and the organizers can very easily judge this, if the article is qualified or not. And we're looking forward to make more functions in next year's, including will be more friendly to participants as well as organizers, and it will be more fit to other sister projects rather than Wikipedia. Next slide, please. So how can you participate? Visit us on Meta. Just go to meta.wikimedia.org and search WAM. You can see our Wikipedia Asian Month meta page. It contains all 50 language Wikipedia event page. And you can write an article about Asia on almost any language you want. And also invite your friends, and even organize an event on your home wiki. And also read, learn about Asian cultures, traditions, history, and more on your language Wikipedia. That's the meaning of the Wikipedia Asian Month. Thank you. And I think now we need to move to the executive director update from Catherine.
Thanks, Addis. It's Mar. It's cool. No one gets it right. Don't worry about it. I don't get it right half the time. Hi, everyone. Great to see you. Do I have a clicker? Right on. It's true. I have the power. Good morning. Happy November. So first of all, I just want to give a big warm welcome to Victoria. I know that, yes. Welcome, Victoria.
Thank you, guys.
Ah, there you are. We're delighted.
I'm hiding. I'm working from home today. Hi, everyone.
We are delighted to have you here, and we decided not to put Victoria through the experience of having to come up on stage in her first 2 weeks in the job, but we'll get her up here soon to talk a little bit and to introduce herself when she's had a chance to sort of pick her head up from all of the information that she's swimming in. Does that sound good to you, Victoria? Oh, she's muted. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I was just saying thank you, Catherine. I will really look forward to that, and I'm also like grateful for giving me the space, everyone, for like getting my my head kind of in the right place. It's been a wonderful first week, learning as fast as I can, but there's still a lot to learn. So when I speak to you, I want to speak to you like with something to say from a position of knowledge versus ignorance. So just, you know, bear with me for a few more days, a week.
or weeks. It's okay. No, we're really excited, and we're going to probably be doing some office hours once Victoria has had, as she said, some time to really sort of process and get to learn more about us and what some of the concerns and issues and priorities are going to be. So, looking forward to that. Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you.
So I'm going to give an update on a couple things. I'm going to talk a little bit about the November board meeting, and then I'm going to also share a little bit about strategy and future work on that, strategy planning. I think many of the folks here at the foundation have heard a lot about that, but I think many of our community members who are watching, this will be an update for them. So every November, every year, the Board of Trustees for the Wikimedia Foundation does a retreat. It's a little bit different than our regular board meetings where we get together and we make decisions um, around things like resolutions and budgets and approving the annual plan. Sorry, it's warm up here. And approving the annual plan. The retreat is really meant to be a time where we can get together and talk about priorities for the foundation and for the movement and think a little bit more about long-term planning and the goals that the trustees have in general. So this year, last weekend, we got together in New York and we talked about a couple of things. We had 2 days together that were really meant to be something like a mini sort of private conference salon where people from outside our movement and inside our movement presented on things such as the world in 2030, what we can expect in terms of population and demographics, emerging technology trends that we're seeing globally. We had the Chief Digital Officer for the City of New York, formerly of the Chief Digital Officer of the Metropolitan Museum, come in and talk to us a little bit about how large organizations can create innovative change. And then we went over to the New York Public Library to talk with their Chief Digital Officer about how a important public institution continues to reinterpret its mission as the world around it changes and the medium through which it reaches its audience changes. Does that sound familiar to folks? I'm seeing some nods, yeah. And then the second day we had we had a number of other presentations. The first, I believe, was, it was a presentation from our colleague Nicole Eber at Wikimedia Deutschland, who gave us a presentation on our movement, the status of our affiliates globally, their growth, maturity, their challenges, a little bit about some of the experiences she had going around and conducting something called the Chapter Dialogues 2 years ago, you may remember, but also some updates in the way that our movement has continued to mature since then. And then we had someone come in from UNICEF to talk a little bit about how you truly can work with communities globally to understand what their needs are in real time and how to serve them. Then we had then we had Michelle Paulson, not somebody, I don't know if Michelle is somewhere around, talk a little bit about the emerging policy environment that we exist in globally. So what are the concerns that we see as we look around the world today, and what does that mean for our movement? And then finally, we had somebody who makes art out of open data come and give us a sort of inspirational conversation around the beauty of open. And so by the end of those 2 days, our trustees, I think, were feeling inspired. They were feeling as though they had a perspective on the work that we do. They might have even been feeling a little afraid, but that's great because fear is a great motivator. And they, I think, came together around what it is that we're going to need to be talking about over the course of the next few months in terms of setting a direction for the future. And then we had a board meeting, and I'm going to walk us through a little bit about what we talked about there, just to make sure that you all have a sense of where those conversations are happening at the governance level of the organization. So I shared with them a little bit about our financials. As you know, we're about to enter into our major English fundraiser. Thank you so much to the fundraising team for all of your support in that. But really, what we were talking about at the moment in the board meeting, was around how we're performing to date at the end of the first quarter. So we're tracking below our budget against what we planned for the year. We've been repurposing some money that is available to us that we haven't spent yet for initiatives that support our annual plan commitments. So for example, for those of you who've been following the conversation around performance and making Wikipedia faster and the projects faster, we're talking about maybe a caching center in Asia that will allow us to increase performance and for people around the globe. And then we talked about the fact that we had a clean audit, which I think you probably have seen emails about over the course of the past month, which is a really significant accomplishment and major credit to the finance team. So thank you guys for that. At the end of the first quarter, this is just a snapshot of where we're at. We spend about 86% of our budget. So that's the actual to budget ratio. That's a pretty good place to be. It gives us some flexibility to, as I said, repurpose some of our financial resources for new projects. And it just gives you a sense of where we are as an organization at the moment. This is some of the expense by department. I will post these slides. And then I walked through some of our product metrics at the end of September in terms of the work that the discovery team is doing, that the reading team is doing, and that the editing team is doing, and highlighted some of the things that we're seeing, in terms of positive trends. So of course, user engagement's really exciting year over year, I think because this tracks to the very first time we ever implemented anything around user engagement. So it's all been uphill from there. As you can see, mobile web is growing, the percentage of people who are reading us on the mobile web. And then in terms of non-bot edits, that seems to be growing as well. And so I just walked through these trend numbers for our board so that they had a little bit of an understanding of the things that we're focused on as we do our work. And then as you heard Chris talk a little bit about, we talked about community health and some of the work that the community engagement team is working on to address community health and address how we would deal with toxic behavior on our wikis. And so Maggie presented a little bit about what are some of the things that we might do going forward to support our communities and to support a healthier, more inclusive environment. And some of those ideas are going to be presented as part of the annual planning process over the coming year. And so I just want to say a big thank you to Patrick Early and to that whole team for preparing that and giving our trustees a sense of all the progress and momentum that's being that we're seeing across the team, both in the community engagement team, but also the work that the community tech team's doing and the research team is doing there. So that was sort of the operational update that I presented to our trustees. But what I really wanted to talk about today is to talk a little bit about strategy. So for folks here in the foundation, and certainly for community members who are watching today or who will be watching later, when we got together at Wikimania, I mentioned in sort of the surprise of the moment that we're going to be focusing on a strategic direction for the movement. And some of you have heard that here at the foundation when we've gotten together at staff breakfasts, is the sense of 15 years in, we've accomplished a lot and sort of where do we go from here? And this was a request by our trustees to develop a strategy that would allow us to guide ourselves and make decisions. And we're about to embark on that. But before I talk about the process itself, I want to talk a little bit about the why. So where are we today? Some of you, this is very familiar information. For some of you, this is perhaps new, or perhaps part of the history, but not necessarily all of the history. And a lot of people have supported me and the leadership team in putting this together. And so I'm looking at Guillaume right now, and I want to say thank you for all of the support in helping us dig back into the past and understand some of the decisions that have been made. So the projects, when we started them in 2001, or we didn't start them, when the projects were started in 2001, they were an idea, right? And we didn't know exactly how they were going to grow and how they were going to go. And they evolved organically, and it was tremendously exciting. And around 2009, I'm sure there were discussions about this prior to 2009, but around 2009, it became clear that we had this thing, these projects, this idea, that were wildly successful beyond what anybody had expected, and they were growing organically. And the community had, I think the community and I think the foundation and the trustees had some sense that it would be helpful for us to know what we wanted to achieve going forward. We were seeing some positive trends, we were perhaps seeing some negative trends, and we had a sense that we should have a conversation as a movement about what we wanted to achieve. And that led to a 2009 to 2010 strategy discussion around a Wikimedia movement strategy that resulted in a number of big goals that were meant to set us up for 5 years worth of work. In 2012, the foundation under Sue Gardner realized that those goals were wonderful and ambitious, but we perhaps weren't quite resourced to address them. And so there was a discussion around narrowing focus, which meant perhaps pulling back from some of those bigger goals that the foundation and focusing on what the foundation could do. And that narrowing focus exercise, as many of you know, but not necessarily all of you, and so it led us to determine that we were an organization that was going to focus on tech and focus on grant making. And I think for some folks, that has been sort of the paradigm around which we've been operating for a while now. In 2014, we had a new executive director who issued something called a call to action, which was not exactly a strategy, but was meant to perhaps focus us on narrowing our focus even further to focus on the things that perhaps we saw as issues, or to clarify some of the things that we did well, or improve performance, or perhaps stop doing certain things. In 2016, we had a transition, and we had to close a strategy quite quickly to get us through an interim period. And out of that came something like a three-pronged strategy focused on reach, communities, and knowledge. Against that, the foundation built its annual plan. That's the annual plan against which we're operating today. So many of the programs that we've talked about, whether it's about inclusivity in terms of the community, like Chris was just talking about earlier, comes out of the community work, and then there's the work that the New Readers team is doing around reach and the like. That's really great, and it's going to get us through the next 2 years in terms of our annual planning for this year and our annual planning for next year. And now really what we're looking at is, where do we want to go? Because the strategy that we resolved in 2016 was for the foundation and not for the whole movement. And I think that there's a question for the movement about where do we go. So in terms of why this question has come up, there are a couple things that I think are important. The world has changed. There are some bad things. The web is less open and more commercial. Secondary sources are more fragmented, and a greater proportion of them are less reliable. Copyright terms keep growing globally. Privacy is less concrete than it has been in the past. And the window of discourse and public and open discourse is narrowing globally. Oh no, that's broken. Well, the world has changed in some good ways too. And I'm really sad, because this was supposed to be the inspirational, exciting slide, right? Our scale and the scale of our work and the possibility of it has changed dramatically. We are bigger than we ever expected to be, but that is also true in terms of our ability to reach more people. Literacy is rising, more people are connected than they have ever been. Technology is evolving in ways that can augment our work and make it more accessible to more people. Our community is growing, and there are more voices in it. It is more diverse, it is more global than it has ever been. This is bringing new perspectives and opinions and innovation to our work. This is an exciting moment, and I think many of us are ready for what this moment can mean. And then we are ready. Wikipedia as a model, we know it works. It's, there are always things that we can improve on, but it's stable and it's evolving. Our name, the Wikimedia movement and Wikipedia, is known and trusted by many. The foundation is stable, and you're going to hear a little bit about the engagement survey results coming up soon, but it seems like we're all pretty engaged. We're fairly financially healthy. I presented a little bit about the financials earlier. Our movement is maturing and self-organizing, and we see that across the board with our affiliates and affinity groups and partners, and our projects are continuing to grow and evolve. And as I said in an email earlier to staff this week, I believe that our work is more important than ever. And so this is our opportunity to figure out where we go. So how do we do that? It's a good question. I don't know yet. That's the answer. But I think it starts with understanding our ecosystem. Who are our communities and who are our users? What do people need out of our projects and out of knowledge writ large? What are the other players in our ecosystem? That could be partners, that could be technology companies, that could be governments, it could be educators. We'll define that. What does the future look like? I think we know, as Lisa said at our board retreat, we can know who's going to be in the world in 15 to 20 years by simply counting babies. It's a lot harder to understand what the future of technology and education is, but we can talk to some smart people who are trying to shape those futures. What are the challenges we should be watching? And what are the opportunities to grow and meet our mission? And then finally, and this is a really important pragmatic question, because we can build all those beautiful goals, but what are our options with our resources that we have? So who should we talk to? I think it's a broad group. It's certainly our Wikimedia communities. It's our users. It's external experts, as I mentioned, those who spend their time and lives focused on the things that we maybe don't have the resources to understand or the capacity or bandwidth. It's relevant institutions that we work with and partner with every day. It's our donors. And it's the people that we're not yet serving. Because if we're only building for the people we're currently serving, we're going to continue to miss the opportunity for those who we have yet to reach. And how are we going to do it? Well, this is deliberately a grayed out slide, because this is really meant to be just a proposal. I think that it is going to involve, at the top, it's going to involve consultation, and then it's going to involve synthesis, and then it's going to involve implementation. And that is about the most confirmed that I am willing to get, because ideally we're going to be building this draft process together. We're going to be bringing in folks who have the expertise in how to facilitate large conversations around building strategy and understanding theories of change. And then we're going to actually go through a process of determining how do we do this as a community together. So where are we? Well, this is today. It's a long road ahead. Today, we're at the end of this calendar year. The idea is that we work on strategy over the course of the next 6 months. We present the strategic direction that we've come to at Wikimania. And ideally, it's not going to be a surprise to anyone as to where we are. It's really going to be using Wikimania as an opportunity to talk about what we've been talking about publicly with our community and with others over the course of 6 months. And then this is where the rubber hits the road, to use an expression, colloquialism, where strategic planning then begins. Once we know where our strategic direction is, once we've had those conversations, how do we then transform that into action? So how will we do it? And I know I'm running short on time. I apologize. Well, we'll recruit an experienced team. I think I've mentioned this before in conversations with colleagues here at the foundation. We know that everybody here has work to do. We know that you have annual plan goals to meet. And so what we want to do is to be able to ensure, and we know that our community members are volunteers and that their time is precious, and that we need to make sure that when they contribute, what we're really getting is the greatest sense of the greatest high impact contributions, and that they're focused on being able to really engage with the substance of the conversation. So an experienced team who can help us give a structure and facilitate and do sort of the operational heavy lifting. Hold global and inclusive consultations. And when I say that, I don't just mean on Wiki, although on Wiki is going to be important. But I think that there needs to be a commitment to getting people into a room together to have those conversations, and to have them in the languages in which they speak, whatever languages those might be. I think we need to conduct some research around the world that we live in, because as many of us know, the plural of anecdote is not data. And so it would be great to have some data about the needs that, that our communities and that our users have. We should listen to our users and to experts, and then we should communicate in a way that inspires and clarifies what it is that we're actually doing, because so much of our challenges can often, as we hear from community members all the time, is around a lack of clear communication around our intent and our goals, and so being as clear as possible about what it is that we're trying to do. And what will we get? This is a big one. This is one that I've heard from colleagues here in the foundation, is why does this all matter to any of us? How does this affect my work? Ideally, it will give us a clarity of purpose and direction, where when somebody stops you on the street and they say, what do? You say, well, I work for the Wikimedia Foundation. We're the organization that supports Wikipedia. And then what's your next line? When we went to the New York Public Library with the board retreat, somebody observed, the speaker who welcomed us observed, that if you were to ask 1,000 people on the street, is a library a good thing? How many of them do you think would say yes? He guessed 950, right? Don't know about the other 50, but 950 people would say a library is a good thing. But if you were to ask, what is a library meant to do in a community today? That's a different question, because it is no longer necessarily about lending books. A library is something that is very different. As we heard at Wiki Conference North America, libraries are no longer in the books business, they're in the community business. And I think that that's really critical when we think about our work, because we know what we are today. We're a good thing. But we don't necessarily know what it is that we're doing in terms of where we're going to the future. And we don't necessarily know what the goals are that our communities have globally, and what it is that we want to achieve beyond continuing to build the encyclopedia. So ideally, this gives us clarity of purpose and direction, which allows us to make decisions about what we work on and what we don't work on, what we resource, how we support our communities, where we support our communities. Ideally, we'll have alignment and common understanding of that. Strategic insight into our users, which are important because it allows us to make better decisions that serve the people that we want to serve more effectively. A network of experts who are also our allies and care about our success and our mission. And then a more focused and effective movement and foundation, because we're all here to be effective, because we want to get the work done. We want to achieve our mission. We want to make more progress towards that vision. So what's next? Recruit the team, design the process, and start the conversation. That's probably 3 very simple bullets for a lot of hard work. All right, I know I only have 3 minutes left for questions. I'm very sorry about that. But over to Q&A.
Okay, so yeah, there are 2 minutes in the official meeting left for questions, but we should probably take 10 or see how things go. Do folks in the room have questions? I see James with a finger up, so there must be IRC.
Hi there. Question from IRC from Pine for Addis. I hope Addis is still on. Do you know how many people clicked through the central notice banners and how many of those participated in the campaign? How many of the people who participated were newly registered editors?
So I haven't tracked the data from the central notice, but I'm organizing the event on English Wikipedia, and I kind of welcome like 10 or 20 new users each day who sign up on the participant page, which is likely go through the central notice. So they're just new users. Their talk page has never been welcomed. So I just send a welcome message. That probably like 10 or 20 each day.
If I recall from reading the report for Wikipedia Asia Month, most of the participants were not new users. They were people with some experience editing.
Oh yeah, because writing 5 articles is not really easy for the new users. But yeah, we have like 20% people are new users from last year, I think. Well, but most contribution is still made by the existing users.
Okay, do we have other questions about Wikipedia Asia Month, the Inspire campaign on harassment? That was a hard one to name. I see Alex's hand up. You have to get close.
Good? Okay. Addis, I just wanted to thank you so much for sharing your project with us today. I know that we've funded this the last year and this year at very, very small amounts with a large amount of impact. And I think it's really interesting, especially for our team in grant making, to see creative ideas on how to engage and motivate new and existing editors. And I think looking a little bit at the psychology of it, that that a prize like a camera or a trip to Wikimania can motivate people, but also that small thing like a postcard or getting an ambassadorship is also that people are motivated by different reasons to participate. And I really appreciate Addis's work and how he's teaching us here how we can engage people and how it doesn't take a lot of funds to do something big. So thank you, Addis.
Yeah, I want to add on to what Alex said. In the slide that had someone showing one of the postcards, I just saw on the message it said, like, thank you so much for participating. It's wonderful to have you here. Keep up the good work. So just having a physical thank you. I mean, we work so much online. That kind of thing is really could be important. And Addis, I'm curious. So to be an ambassador, you had to write 50 articles, which is no small feat. Or no small amount of work. How many people achieved that?
Oh, it's not have to be 50 articles. It's just whoever created most articles on their Wikipedia. That 50 articles is the limit for the who can get a T-shirt from the foundation. That top 3 global contributors, which is already passed. So there's already people qualified that criteria.
So a lot of people qualified for that.
So yeah, currently we have like around 10 people has passed who has already created like 50 articles already.
All right, do we have other questions? Anything on IRC? No? All right, well, we could take a couple minutes for Wiki Love then, if people have, what is Wiki Love? We're recognizing each other, thanking each other, calling out great things we've seen recently. Anyone? I see a hand up.
Is this thing on? I just wanted to thank the folks that keep the lights on. I was standing back there watching OIT do all of its magic to make this work, and I don't think we thank them enough. So, thanks, guys.
I would like to give some wiki love to the folks in that room who can't hear us right now. It's the Funds Dissemination Committee. They meet for about a week, twice a year, to go through annual plan grants from different affiliates. It is a lot of work to prepare for, and then a lot of time to take out of your personal life to come and do this. So I really appreciate that group and all the folks who've supported them in the evaluation. None of them are in this room right now.
I wanted to
Casey,
thank.
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I wanted to thank Lynette and Robert and who else is involved in the office research and the presentation that they gave this week. I thought it was really helpful to understand the thinking. It seems like they're doing a really good job taking into consideration all the different factors, and so I really appreciate.
I can add in here if I'm not stepping in front of anybody. Is that okay? This is Chris on just talking remotely. Just want to have two sets of thanks. One for Karen Brown, Patrick Early, and Joe Sutherland on support and safety for their help with the Addressing Harassment Inspire campaign. They provide a lot of research and context that helped help me prepare that campaign very effectively. And I also like to express thanks to all the people on IRC who help provide some additional context and comments and links to helpful resources that that provide a little bit more depth to presentations that are going on. So thank you to IRC folks.
Okay.
And I wanted to thank everyone who's been participating in the values discussions, both staff and volunteers and board members. They have been very rich, very deep discussions, and so we're going to have a lot of interesting work summarizing all that. We have our work cut out for us, but just thank you everyone for participating.
And thank you for facilitating those. I thought it was a lot to spend 2 hours in a meeting, but it ended up being totally enjoyable and really, really interesting and helped me in my own work. I see someone back there. Is it Eliza?
I just want to thank like HR and Catherine and everyone in the organization based on last year's event or last week's event. It's been great to talk about my workplace and how we're navigating through the mire. So I just want to thank everyone for that, having a space to talk and support each other.
All right, so I haven't seen any other hands. We're 6 minutes over, so it seems like it's time for lunch. Thank you all for coming today, and thank you to everyone who presented and asked questions.